being technological savvy, Mr. Speaker. For example, we need to ensure that we have GIS, Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker. When you have Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker, GIS. The Committee of County Public and Investment, I think in the last session, Mr. Speaker, it was a joint committee, and I'm happy during that session, Mr. Speaker, we were not able to look at these issues, and I know they are very busy because they have to look back for almost, Mr. Speaker, from 2013, because during the public investments, we could not look at public accounts in the last session. But I'm happy in the wisdom of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, we have seen the need to have a public investment committee. And I'm happy to, this report of 2019-2020, I'm happy with the pace at which the Public Investment Committee of this House is doing its work, led by the Deputy Party Leader of ODM, my brother and friend and neighbor, Senator Otsotsi, for the good job that he's doing, Mr. Speaker. And for us who interacted with Senator Otsotsi in the last session, he was a fiery legislator who almost angamised one of our principles, but I'm happy nowadays he's more calm. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Amatsi Water Service Company Limited in Vihiga, Bomet Water Company Limited in Bomet County, Gusii Water and Sanitation Company Limited in Kisii, Nyamira counties, and this is where we have problems even in waterworks, Mr. Speaker. Remember, for example, Nandi, there are many shared, Mr. Speaker. Even in Nandi, we have a Loret Water and Sanitation Company that covers both Wazingishu County and Nandi and part of Lesos in Nandi's constituency. We have Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company in Kisumu County, Kwale Sewerage and Sanitation, Nyeri and Sanitation Company, Mr. Speaker, where our Manyora village is. Mr. Speaker, on many aspects, I want to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, on many issues. I agree that most of our companies are on the red, water companies, even Kapsabet Water and Sanitation Company, Mr. Speaker. For example, Water and Sanitation Company is under in Nandi County, where we still depend on generators and electricity to pump water into Kapsabet town, Mr. Speaker, and its environs. We had expected that the government would expedite the construction of a Keben Dam, Mr. Speaker, which was upscaled to 24 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. I know there are a number of dams across the country, like Tuaga Dam. There is also Karmenu Dam, Mr. Speaker. There is Posta Dam in Bomet. There is also Itare Dam in Nakuru. Chemasusu Dam was complete. We had one, the Aror and Kimwarer dams in Elgeyo Marakwet County, Mr. Speaker. We have two rivers in Wazingishu. Mr. Speaker, we have the one of Sondu Dam that was supposed to cost 40 billion. That is between Kericho, Nandi, and Kisumu counties, among other dams across the country, Mr. Speaker. So it is very important that water is life. Water should be accessible, Mr. Speaker. If a society where it will reach a point that water is more expensive than soda or any other beverage, Mr. Speaker, as a society, we have collapsed. I know in northern part of the country, we still have challenges of access to water. And we remember we were being told that there is aquifer waters, especially in Turkana and that northern Pearl, where we were being told up to 70 years access to underground water, to especially regions, your county like Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, among other counties in the northern frontier, Mr. Speaker, is very critical. As a society, Mr. Speaker, when you don't have water for domestic use to drink, Mr. Speaker, many years ago, there were clamor for changes in reforms of water sector, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, as we grapple with the challenges of access to water in eastern and northeastern part of this country, where ours is rain-fed, Mr. Speaker. We are lucky from where I come in Nandi. The reason why we don't have so much challenge of access to water for domestic use, drinking, and other usage is because of rain-fed kind of access to water, Mr. Speaker. In fact, even counties that border Indian Ocean, Mr. Speaker. There was even a proposal of Mzima Springs that is not sufficient. We need desalination of, because the auction water has salt, Mr. Speaker. Those are some of the access to create water in these areas, Mr. Speaker. But yeah, can you believe living in Nairobi is like living in some eastern or northern eastern of this country? Because, Mr. Speaker, water only appears in Nairobi like medicine, Mr. Speaker. No one is sure. That is why the thriving business of water bowsers in this city, Mr. Speaker, where at the moment there are many water bowsers. Even in yours, when you drive in the Nairobi roads, Nairobi streets, Mr. Speaker, you will always spot water bowsers. It's a booming business. Because, Mr. Speaker, I don't know it was by default or by design, where the supply of water has collapsed in this city, Mr. Speaker. We were being told the northern corridor of Murang'a should provide sufficient water, sufficient water to Nairobi City, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you many Kenyans, 4 million plus residents of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, there is no difference with people who are living in Wajir or Turkana in terms of access to water. You have to buy water, which is expensive in terms of household expenditure, Mr. Speaker. You know, many families across the country, Mr. Speaker, spend 60% of their income on food. Food be inclusive of water, Mr. Speaker. I think that is the challenge as a country we must grapple with. And I think as a country, our people should be able to access clean and safe water wherever they are. 50 million plus, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we want to ask counties, because most of these water and sanitation companies are domiciled within counties, Mr. Speaker. We want to ask, Mr. Speaker, we notice, and I want to confirm that we don't have smart meters, where you still have clerical waterworks, the meter readers. I'm told the first president of this republic was a meter reader in this city, Mr. Speaker. And I know Senator Okiya Omtata might be aware, because he's good at litigation, that he was the meter reader, Mr. Speaker. So you get people, clerical, still go and read, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know, you know, you can be a meter reader and become a multi-billion in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, when you go and they still read it physically using motorbikes, using access, and then write, Mr. Speaker, we need to introduce smart meters so that we protect and ensure accuracy in terms of declaring in the financial statement. And I think water sanitation companies should introduce, Mr. Speaker, smart meters so that you don't need to be there. Even Kenya Power and Lighting and Company, although that's another, it was one of the scandals that did affect this country was provision of smart meters in Kenya Power and Lighting Company. We need smart readers, smart meters, so that our people, we can know. So, Speaker, you know, I was shocked that these meter readers come and read and then go and approximate how much you will pay. But if you had smart reader, it gives us the precision of a military marksman what you should pay in terms of access, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, even it will also assist non-revenue water, Mr. Speaker. Because the fact that that water is lost, it means that revenue is lost, Mr. Speaker, in terms of non-revenue water. And therefore, we need to have even, Mr. Speaker, a technological era. Kenya is boasting of being technological savvy, Mr. Speaker. For example, we need to ensure that we have GIS, Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker. When you have Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker, GIS, it can tell us where is the pipe leakages, where there is pipe burst, the way Kenya Pipeline Corporation are using in terms of GIS. Say that if you are taking fuel from here to Eldoret to Kisumu, these pipes that KPC all the way from terminal, Kipevu terminal or wherever in Mombasa, they should be having a GIS to detect water leakages so that you prevent non-revenue water and loss of revenue because water is spilled or the pipes are burst, Mr. Speaker. So when we have GIS, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the committee led by my brother has noted this, it will assist in terms of ensuring that when you have geographical information system, it can detect the way we detect fuel when there is leakage. They can become precise, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that we can be able to detect any leakages of water or burst pipes in the system or infrastructure within. And I hope other companies, like whether it is coast companies, whether it is in Rift, whether it is in Nairobi here, it should be able to use GIS, Mr. Speaker. It is something that is easy. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, we should not be told counties or when they're upgrading to GIS that it is taking 104 billion. the way the ICT infrastructure upgrade was done in terms of the upgrade of NHIF and SHA, Mr. Speaker, because you know the funny part, and Senator Eddy will tell you, the funny part with an infrastructure of app, you need upgrade, you don't own it. It becomes absolute. So when you pay a lot, like the way you are paid 104 billion for infrastructure in terms of NHIF, then there is a big problem, because that's software, you'll keep it improving, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of what, I am happy that there is a report. I have seen there is a version, Mr. Speaker, of a mediated version of Water Act. This, Mr. Speaker, should resolve the issue of Water Trust Fund. You remember the amendment that was brought, what we call the Water Amendment Bill of 2023. The intention was to reverse, Mr. Speaker, contravening fourth schedule, where water and management and water sanitation and access to water was left to counties, Mr. Speaker. You remember there's still animals called waterworks. Like now we have coastal waterworks. We have Lake Victoria North, where Nandi, Kakamega and Vihiga and other counties are falling within. We have Lake Victoria South waterworks. We have Central Rift waterworks. We have Tana waterworks. We have Tana Adi waterworks, Mr. Speaker. These waterworks undermine devolution. In fact, these waterworks, Mr. Speaker, should be completely taken off. For example, in Lake Victoria North waterworks, where Nandi is, the headquarters in Kakamega, but when you go there, it's only, they have hired only one tribe, and yet it covers my county, Nandi, it covers Vihiga, it covers Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. I think Ngishu was removed, it is now in Central Rift. We are suffering. Most of the development in Lake Victoria North, in terms of even drilling water in schools and hospitals, Mr. Speaker, and other community center, they are only drilled in Kakamega and Vihiga and other areas, but Nandi is left out, Mr. Speaker, because of perception that this region, Mr. Speaker, and it undermines Article 10 or principles of good governance and national values, Mr. Speaker. So when you look at Lake Victoria North, Nandi, when you look at the projects that come to Nandi through that waterworks, as opposed to other regions, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfair. And I think it is high time we disband and ensure coastal waterworks, North Rift waterworks, Tana, Adi waterworks, any other waterworks in the country should be disbanded, because they let the counties and the county governments run those waterworks under the water and sanitation companies. And I hope in the next report, the PIC committee must tell us that we need to bring down all waterworks, because that is where the bastion of corruption is. Most of the dams that I mentioned, like Tuage, Karmenu, Posta, Itare, Keben, and other dams, Mr. Speaker, including Sondu, and including North Rift, and even Aurora and Kimwarer, are run by specific waterworks, Mr. Speaker. These same waterworks are becoming bastions of corruption and inefficiency and ineptitude, Mr. Speaker, at running, Mr. Speaker. Number three, most of the boards that run these water companies in counties and sanitation companies is becoming a big challenge. For example, even in Kapsabet, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a functional sewerage and sanitation, Mr. Speaker. It was done by the Mzungu that is near Kiropket, behind Kapsabet town, Mr. Speaker. That even environment impact assessment has not been done by NEMA in terms, Mr. Speaker. When you go, we are trying to do one in Nandi Hills town that has been given to a contractor near Kosoi, next to Nandi Hills town, Mr. Speaker. The water and sanitation, in terms of sewerage and sanitation, should be efficient. Most of the sewerage and sanitation, Mr. Speaker, can you believe, most of them were constructed by Mzungu. I think Senator Mungatana said something that as Africans we need to be careful. We believe that Mzungu money will change us. It will not change. If we want to remove the present neocolonialism of running, Mr. Speaker, this nation, Mr. Speaker, we need to agree, Mr. Speaker, and in terms of, we need to improve that infrastructure. I am happy that as we even do affordable housing, Mr. Speaker, we should also work with ensuring that we have a proper sewerage and sanitation for the affordable housing program, so that we have a complete circuit. So that when you live in a house, you are sure of access to water, you have access to sewerage and sanitation, because, Mr. Speaker, most of the sewerage and sanitation areas are next to public places, and public where people live, Mr. Speaker, and I think it is important that we do that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the regeneration of water sources, I have seen Nairobi regeneration program where the government is trying to hire most of the young people, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring that they have access. Mr. Speaker, number 5, of course, the issue of water service provider in terms of bulk water program, Mr. Speaker, purchase agreement, we must agree. Water should be accessible, Mr. Speaker. There is a song in reggae that a society becomes dysfunctional when there is nothing that is of development, Mr. Speaker. They sang that when you look outside the window, do you see anything to smile about, Mr. Speaker? When you see there are more prisons, and I think it is Lucky Dube, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, he was felled by assassin. Mr. Speaker, you remember the song No One Can Stop Reggae? And last time we could not say that because people of azimio like Senator Manzo was using it. No one can stop reggae. You remember, Mr. Speaker, I think in 1987, Peter Tosh was felled by the assassin, and Lucky Dube, Mr. Speaker, went to sing about No One Can Stop Reggae, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, last month, Mr. Speaker, we are remembering Peter Tosh because he's one of the biggest vibrant in terms of reggae genre, Mr. Speaker. I know, Mr. Speaker, people are listening, like Senator Eddie are listening to Triomio, like Nimekuma, Kufinish Kumalo, Mr. Speaker. And I'm told there is a new one called Iyani, Mr. Speaker, where there is new mastingos, Utakufa, Kifo, Mende, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what we need as a country, even as we do regeneration of rivers within, Mr. Speaker, is important. We want to ask, Mr. Speaker, even in provision of bulk water agreement. And I want to see, Mr. Speaker, the mediation report, and I want to thank your office on the water mediation report. We must agree that let us stop undermining and reversing issues that, and Mr. Speaker, all of us who are seated here, you know, one of our senators went to become the deputy president, Mr. Speaker. Many people will become governors. My brothers and sisters are senators. If we do not protect evolution, you will go back to become a governor in makwiny when my brother has finished 10 years. Don't interfere with him in 2027. When he has finished 10 years, Senator Maanzo, you don't want to go and run a county government. That is a shell, Mr. Speaker. Senator Otsotsi, I know your governor is going for the last term. I know you don't see eye to eye, but you don't want to go and inherit a county government that is dysfunctional. Mr. Speaker, as we talk, the counties are yet to receive their disbursement, contravening Article 219, Mr. Speaker. Even in Garissa, Mr. Speaker, your governor is serving the second term. But your ambitions looks beyond the governor level, Mr. Speaker. But the point I'm trying to make, let us not be part of the people who will legislate ourselves out of business. So that we can, I remember Senator Ojila Yako, when he was the senator here before my brother, Senator Eddie, Mr. Speaker, and you know he was the only young man in Nyanza who campaigned with an helicopter. So it looks he is a man of means, Mr. Speaker. We used to tell the people like Senator Ojila Yako, the current governor, that we need to protect devolution. So that when you go back to become the governor, Mr. Speaker, you don't suffer. Mr. Speaker, let us be careful. Even on this report of water mediation version, I want to ask colleagues to be very careful. Senator Otsosi and your committee, you need to assist us. I have seen Senator Kisang, part of the PIC members. I have seen Senator Eddie, who is a member of PIC, Mr. Speaker. Let us ensure counties function into the fruition, Mr. Speaker. Even the issue of running of the companies. I saw, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, you saw Northern Corridor that is providing water to Nairobi. They need to be compensated. Even in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we are giving water to Kakamega, but in Tuia Bay, there is no water. In Kapkangani, water is no water, yet we give our water to Kakamega. You go to Chebara, where my brother, Senator Kisang, comes from. Water is taken to Eldoret. The people of Chebara are not receiving access to clean and safe water. Yet they are protecting the source of water that comes to Eldoret. We are protecting the water that goes to Kakamega. Muranga is protecting water that comes, Mr. Speaker. I know even in Garissa, it's only a kilometer or so within Garissa town, but there is no clean and access water, Mr. Speaker. Yet the Tana River is just passing outside the city of Garissa. But there is no clean and access water, Mr. Speaker. We must speak as a Senate that to ensure devolution works, access to water, bursary, adequate medical supply, passable feeder roads. That is how devolution will work with this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I want to submit, Mr. Speaker, and support the motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Faki Mwinihaji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika pia kunipa fursa hii kuchangia Ripoti ya